Was Jeffrey Epstein an alien? Was there a UFO seen leaving Epstein Island? Could he still be alive? What was his interest in high technology? Well, let's dive into it. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, and by the way, all the trigger warnings with this one, definitely deeply disturbing material. A lot of people have been speculating what the hell was going on or possibly even is going on with Jeffrey Epstein. And, we may be speculating about this for years, but there is evidence that he may have been connected with UFOs. And if that's true, that has broader implications about the elite, the human elite of the world, and may or may not be connected to things like the Illuminati and Illuminati-esque activities. Deeply disturbing stuff. So let's get into it. Here is what one victim had to say about an experience when she was being victimized by Jeffrey Epstein.
First, and then we'll touch on this lab experience as well. So, can you explain what you mean by shape-shifting here?
Well, when I was in the bedroom with him, because he used to take me into that small bedroom, and it was always dark and really cold, and then it was almost like when he was orgasming or something. Like I looked at him and suddenly his face like grew like big like this, and then I saw these huge black eyes like this, and then a big mouth with this horrible tongue and like this sort of dragon horn stuff, which is like almost like the devil, or I mean I can't explain really what I saw, because I saw it like, I mean I can explain it, but it's like so hard. I did paint it, but I burnt that painting because I just hated it. But I can paint it again. But I just, I saw him turn into this horrible, creepy thing. And I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't drinking alcohol. Nothing like that was allowed. Like a lot of people think there were parties going on there. There weren't any parties. There was no alcohol. Absolutely not allowed. Like, I smoked, but I had to smoke far away,
Okay, so that's what she saw or thinks she saw. I would like to see some other victims corroborate this kind of story. Did multiple of them witness this? Did this just one woman who's experienced, God knows what sort of trauma, that, who knows where her mind was at during this incident. But if she did see what she says she saw, then that might indicate, that possibly Jeffrey Epstein was a reptilian or something. She says dragon horns seems to be more of a reptilian angle on this. If we're looking at it from an alien angle, she also says he might be the devil, or, compares him to the devil. So could there be even possibly a paranormal context here? And was he literally a shape-shifting alien? Or was he possessed by some sort of entity or something like that? Multiple people have shared stories about shape-shifting lovers. I guess we could say that. Usually it's in a willing context, but people will be making love and then their partner will shapeshift into a reptilian. There are multiple stories about that. However, when we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, I would really need to see some corroboration on that, because again, the implications of that are pretty huge, but that might be where the story goes. And we'll come back to her and her information in a minute. But I wanted, but she did. Okay, we'll get into that in a minute. But let's go to the UFO leaving Epstein Island story. And this was shared on a Pavel Ibarra interview.
Now there's Weinstein making the rounds this week asking, why did Epstein know about my anti-gravity program?
Yeah.
Like he knew it as soon as I had it, and he had me show up, and he was, going over my physics about this stuff. Like, why is that? And there's some really weird stuff surrounding Epstein's Island. I'm forgetting the specific name of it, but there's if you dig around on there's footage of NASA filming something heading into space from near the island.
What?
Yeah, I'll find it for you so you can pop it in here. But I'm not alone. It was me and Jeff is considered a pretty good source of things now between, you know, his bluegill triple prime stuff and a lot of the other research he's done.
Okay. All right. This appears to be filmed from the Space Shuttle Columbia. And I guess that's supposed to be Epstein Island, where there is what seems to be some sort of vehicle or something leaving that island. That seems to be what we're supposed to be looking at here. That's the story. A UFO leaving Epstein Island on the heels of the story of him shape-shifting into a dragon-horned creature. Yeah. So what other possible UFO connections are there? Well, there's outright UFO connections from that same victim.
Now, you mentioned waking up in a lab environment. Can you just detail what this was? Where was this?
Well, when I was taken to New Mexico, you know, I saw the UFO there. It was very creepy. Well, it must have been, it was like these three lights in the sky. And then sometime around that time, I just woke up in a laboratory and I was naked and paralyzed on a table. And there were 6 people in hazmat suits around me. And then there was like a female doctor standing behind my head. And I couldn't move and I couldn't talk, but my eyes could move. And sorry, it's actually really hard to even talking about that because, you know, I had such bad panic. No,
okay.
That's sorry, Jay. But you know, I went back to that sort of time recently, and it's just like it was something so frightening that I can't really explain it, but I know that it happened. And you know, then the doctor came near my head and she said, "Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." And then I suddenly just went out again. But you know, there wasn't like doctor's apparatus in there. There was just like a big like metal slate on top of me, like a door size thing on top of me, and it was just like a very, very frightening thing, you know, to happen.
What were you in New Mexico for at that time?
He just kept flying me back there all the time, you know. I was just like so broken from the whole thing, and it was almost like he was like I suppose he almost had like a bit of a cult in a way, you know, where he does like controlling people. And
So was this is in his ranch, because he had a ranch in New Mexico, right?
what do you mean? I mean, I got
Yeah, they saw a UFO and she woke up in this lab and people were doing things to her. Really interesting, and not on the island, but on this ranch. Now, if you go to, if you just look up Jeffrey Epstein Advanced Technology on Twitter, you'll find a number of articles, some of which are talking about the ranch. Jeffrey Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, where the billionaire pedo planned to impregnate scores of women and seed the human race with his DNA, and also discussed with scientists engaged in genetic experiments and told them he was bankrolling efforts to identify a stalker particle that could trigger the feeling someone is watching you. Has finally been sold. Yeah, the ranch has finally been sold. And you can see images of it. God knows what was going on in that ranch. You know, people get very conspiratorial in this sort of thing. There's so much conspiratorial rabbit holes you can go down with the Epstein story, and people can't even identify who he was working for. You know, most people seem to assume that he was working for somebody. They can't decide if it was Mossad, the FBI, the CIA. And if you go and examine the evidence for each perspective, you can see where they're coming from. So was it one of those organizations? Was it none of them? Could it be one or multiple of them? Or was he working for somebody else? And what was his interest in high technology? Because he was interested in high technology. Epstein was notably involved in funding scientific endeavors, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. Posts on X and various web sources highlight his financial contributions to institutions like MIT's Media Lab and Harvard University, where he supported research in mathematical biology. evolutionary dynamics in AI-related projects. For instance, he funded a 2002 AI symposium in the Virgin Islands, attended by prominent scientists, and was known to have discussions with tech moguls about advanced technology. Some posts also mentioned his fascination with eugenics and using technology to improve the human race, though these claims often come with speculative undertones. Yeah, and so much of this stuff is speculative. Like I say, there's 1,000 rabbit holes to go down. Which, if any of them are authentic, I don't know. Here's another victim of Epstein who says that he is still alive.
He also said that Epstein was still alive, which I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, so I don't know about posting this part on here.
I think you're right on that. I know you're right on that.
Well, so the thing is, in a very expected way, looking at them from this perspective now, Jeff came through one of my jobs and had a very explicit license plate tag. I don't want to say it on here, but it had a sexual reference and the number 69. And this was in alignment with when my first trafficker had said there's insurance money, Epstein's still alive, and well, he said Jeff, but he said Jeff's still alive and like we're invincible, and threatened me. In that timeline, I had seen random people from that period of time in my life, including Jeff, go through my job. And I no call, no showed at my job. And since then have not been working. And thankfully, I have a very committed boyfriend who is being supportive of my mission to spread awareness. So he is like helping me financially right now. But I didn't tell anybody when I had seen these people. And I mean,
So you're saying you've seen Epstein after he was allegedly suicided in public in a club in Florida?
not in a club. No, he came through my job.
Came through her job. Now, how does that make sense exactly? I mean, if she saw him, in some public forum at her place of occupation, then wouldn't others have seen him as well? Why haven't they come forward to corroborate this story? If Jeffrey Epstein was changing shapes while, victimizing people, how come others have not testified to that as well? Maybe it was just with that one individual. That it's so hard to corroborate any of this. But he does seem to have legitimately been interested in high technology, funding projects, ingratiating himself with the scientists and researchers. To what end? What was he doing that for? Does any of that have any connection with that possible UFO that was leaving Epstein Island? And what implications does this have for the elites that were coming and going from that island? Now, a lot of people want to get political and bring up, the current president and so on. But evidence does not support that. The flight logs have been out for years, and yeah, he didn't go there. But others did. Other political figures did go there, and they were involved in some creepy stuff. I mean, it is a thing that is true that they were involved in some creepy stuff. We don't know the truth of all of that. What it all means. How it connects, if anything, to the UFO topic. However, based on the research that I've done, it does appear that if there is not an actual literal Illuminati, there are elites around the world, probably going back hundreds of years, that have been engaged in modalities of contact with the beyond, whether that's metaphysical, spiritual, UFOs, ultra terrestrials, whatever that means. it does seem like they were engaged in modalities of contact. And some of those modalities were likely dark side modalities, engaging with malevolent, evil stuff. Could Jeffrey Epstein have represented some of that stuff? Could he be an incarnation or a representative or possessed by something like that? Obviously, highly speculative. We don't have any corroboration on that. There's a lot of smoke with this story. There's a little fire. However, so much of this stuff has been suppressed, obviously. It's still being suppressed. So what is the truth of it? We don't know, and we're not allowed to know. However, leaks do come out. These victims do speak out. Information does come out. So maybe, hopefully, we will learn something more in the future, because this has, the ramifications of this don't end at Epstein. It affects, a broader class of the elite who may still be engaging in dark side modalities. And this could be the continuation of a tradition that has existed for hundreds of years. I did a story, some time back, talking about how the Vatican was aware that the elites of Europe were dealing with underground beings. And they were concerned about this so much that they blocked up entrances to these underground caverns. Now, if that story is true, that definitely indicates something Illuminati-esque was going on involving modalities of contact, or just outright contact with something beyond, something underground. Could that contact still be going on? Could Epstein represent some of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. I don't know. I hate covering this stuff. I hate to go there. But if the evil is there, we can't just ignore it. It has, what's the old expression? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So let me know what you think the sunlight would be, and how to disinfect, and if it needs to be disinfected, if maybe all of this is just a bunch of smoke and there's no fire. So let me know your thoughts. Like and subscribe, buy some merch, become a channel member, and I'll see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.